What if I told you that the most expensive construction project in human history wasn't a modern skyscraper, wasn't the International Space Station, but a single building erected 3,000 years ago in the hills of Jerusalem? A structure so magnificent that its cost in today's money would reach $590 billion. A temple built in absolute silence, a monument that would ultimately destroy the very kingdom that created it. This is the untold story of Solomon's temple, and the price of glory was far higher than gold. The year is approximately 1000 BCE. For 400 years, the people of Israel have worshipped their God in a tent, a portable sanctuary called the Tabernacle, carried through deserts and battlefields, following a nation of wanderers. But now, everything is about to change. Israel is no longer a collection of nomadic tribes. Under King David, they have become an empire. Jerusalem stands as the heart of a kingdom that stretches from the Mediterranean Sea to the borders of Mesopotamia. But David, the warrior king who conquered nations and slew giants, cannot build the house of God. His hands, the Lord declares, have shed too much blood. The temple of peace cannot be built by a man of war. So David does something extraordinary. He spends the final decades of his life preparing for a building he will never see completed. He amasses a treasure so vast it defies comprehension. 3,400 tons of pure gold, 34,000 tons of silver, bronze in quantities impossible to measure, precious stones gathered from every corner of the known world. The total value? In modern currency, approximately $590 billion. To put this in perspective, the International Space Station, humanity's most expensive project, cost only $150 billion. Solomon's temple cost nearly 4 times as much. When David dies, he passes this astronomical wealth to his son Solomon, along with a sacred mission: build the house of the Lord. And Solomon, the man of peace, accepts the challenge that will define his reign and reshape the destiny of nations. The first obstacle is immediate. Israel doesn't have the materials. They need cedar wood, the finest timber in the ancient world, which grows only in the mountains of Lebanon, controlled by the Phoenician king Hiram of Tyre. So Solomon writes a letter that will change the course of history. Not a demand, not a threat, but a proposal, a business deal between kingdoms. The negotiation is brilliant. Hiram will provide unlimited cedar and cypress wood from Lebanon. He'll send his master craftsmen, the finest artisans in the Mediterranean world. In exchange, Solomon will supply 20,000 cores of wheat and 20,000 baths of pressed olive oil every year. 20 cities as collateral, it's international diplomacy at its finest. 2 kingdoms, 2 religions, 1 impossible project. But here's where the story becomes truly extraordinary. How do you transport millions of tons of timber across 200 miles of mountains and coastline? The logistics alone are staggering. Hiram's men cut the cedars in Lebanon, then float them down the Mediterranean coast to the port of Joppa. From there, Solomon's workers drag them overland to Jerusalem, up steep mountain paths, through valleys and ravines. Each log weighs tons. Some are over 100 feet long. The convoy is endless, stretching for miles across the landscape. Now comes the truly impossible part. Solomon assembles a workforce that has never been seen before and will never be seen again. 183,000 men, 30,000 Israelites working in rotating shifts, spending 1 month in Lebanon and 2 months at home. 70,000 carriers, 80,000 stonecutters, 3,300 foremen to supervise them all. But here's the secret that nobody talks about. These workers are divided into 2 groups. The 30,000 Israelites serve in shifts, maintaining their freedom. But the other 150,000, they are descendants of the Canaanites, the original inhabitants of the land. They serve in perpetual forced labor, never rotating home, never resting. They are the invisible foundation of Solomon's glory. and their suffering will have consequences that echo through generations. Deep beneath Jerusalem, in the quarries of Zedekiah, 70,000 men work in near-total darkness. They are the stone cutters, carving massive blocks from the living rock. Each block must be perfect. Each measurement must be exact. Because of a law so sacred, so absolute, that breaking it means death, no iron tool can touch the temple site. This is not a suggestion. This is divine command. Iron represents war, represents the sword, represents bloodshed. The house of peace cannot be defiled by the metal of violence. So Solomon faces an engineering challenge that seems impossible. How do you build the most complex structure in human history without using tools at the construction site? The solution is prefabrication on a scale never before attempted. Every single stone, every beam, every ornament must be perfectly cut, perfectly shaped, perfectly finished before it ever reaches the Temple Mount. In the underground quarries, hammers ring against chisels. Metal tools carve limestone with precision measured in fractions of inches. But when those stones emerge into the light of Jerusalem, they are silent, perfect, ready to be assembled without a single strike of hammer on metal. The temple rises in absolute silence. 183,000 men working without the sound of construction. No hammering, no chiseling, no metal striking stone. Blocks weighing tens of tons slide into place with whispers instead of crashes. It's impossible, yet it happens. Overseeing this forced labor system is a man named Adoniram, Solomon's minister of forced labor. He is efficiency incarnate, ruthless in his quotas, unmoved by suffering. Under his administration, the work continues day and night, year after year. The Israelite workers see him as necessary. The foreign laborers see him as the face of oppression. Among those workers, watching everything, is a young Israelite officer named Jeroboam. He supervises the labor crews, and what he sees plants seeds of rebellion in his heart. He watches men collapse from exhaustion. He hears the prayers and curses whispered in the darkness of the quarries. He sees the growing resentment, the quiet rage building like pressure beneath the earth. But the work continues. 7 years of continuous construction. The temple takes shape according to plans that David spent decades perfecting. The structure is relatively modest in footprint, only about 90 feet long, 30 feet wide, and 45 feet high. But what it lacks in size, it makes up for in magnificence beyond imagination. The walls are lined with cedar from Lebanon, carved with gourds and open flowers, then overlaid with pure gold. 3,400 tons of gold, covering every surface until the cedar beneath cannot be seen. The floors are gold. The ceiling is gold. The cherubim guarding the Holy of Holies are 15 feet tall, their wings spanning the entire width of the inner sanctuary, every feather covered in beaten gold. Even the nails are gold, weighing 50 shekels each. The craftsmanship is overseen by a master artisan named Huram-Abi, sent by King Hiram. He is a man of mixed heritage, his mother an Israelite widow, his father a Phoenician bronze worker from Tyre. This fusion of cultures produces artistry that transcends national boundaries. He casts 2 bronze pillars, each 27 feet tall, their capitals adorned with pomegranates and lily work. He creates the Bronze Sea, a massive basin for ritual washing, resting on 12 bronze oxen, each facing outward toward the compass points. The sea alone holds 11,000 gallons of water. Every detail carries meaning. The pomegranates represent abundance. The lilies represent purity. The 12 oxen represent the 12 tribes of Israel. Nothing is arbitrary. Everything speaks of order, of divine geometry, of heaven made manifest on earth. But in the darkness below, in the quarries where the stonecutters work, a different story unfolds. These men, descendants of conquered peoples, labor in conditions that break both body and spirit. They cut blocks weighing tons, haul them up narrow passages, load them onto sledges, all while knowing they will never see the finished temple. Their children will serve the same sentence, their grandchildren. This is perpetual servitude disguised as sacred service. Their whispered prayers are not prayers of devotion. They are prayers for deliverance, prayers for the fall of their oppressors, prayers that the temple they build will one day crumble, and history will prove them right. After 7 years, the temple is complete. Solomon calls for a dedication ceremony unlike anything the world has ever seen. He gathers the elders of Israel, the heads of the tribes, the leaders of the ancestral houses. 22,000 cattle and 120,000 sheep are sacrificed. The smoke rises from Jerusalem like a pillar reaching toward heaven. The Ark of the Covenant, the sacred chest containing the tablets of the law, is carried by priests into the Holy of Holies. They place it beneath the wings of the golden cherubim. And then something happens that no one expected. A cloud fills the temple. Not smoke from the sacrifices, not mist from the bronze sea. The Shekinah, the visible glory of God, descends like a physical presence. The cloud is so thick, so overwhelming, that the priests cannot stand. They flee from the sanctuary, unable to remain in the presence of divine glory made manifest. Solomon, watching this, understands what has happened. The God who cannot be contained by heaven itself has chosen to dwell in the house they built. The 400 years of the portable tent are over. The divine presence has found a permanent home. But at what cost? The cost of glory is never measured in gold alone. It's measured in sweat, in blood, in the breaking of human spirits. And Solomon is about to discover that the most expensive building in history has a price tag that cannot be calculated in any currency. The temple stands complete, a monument to divine presence and human ambition. But the kingdom that built it is fracturing from within. The 7 years of construction have drained Israel's resources in ways that gold cannot replenish. The 30,000 Israelites who worked in rotating shifts return home exhausted, resentful of the time stolen from their families and fields. But they are the fortunate ones. The 150,000 foreign laborers have no home to return to. They continue in perpetual service, their bodies worn down by endless quotas, their spirits crushed by a system that treats them as tools rather than human beings. Adoniram, the Minister of Forced Labor, maintains his iron grip on productivity, but beneath the surface, rage is building. Revolution is gestating in the darkness of the quarries. And then comes the moment that reveals the true cost of Solomon's magnificence. King Hiram of Tyre arrives to inspect the 20 cities Solomon promised as part of their agreement. These are the cities Solomon is ceding to pay his debts, because even with $590 billion in resources, the temple project has financially devastated the kingdom. Hiram tours the cities, and his disappointment is palpable. These are not the prosperous urban centers he expected. They are neglected, poorly maintained, of little strategic or economic value. He names them Kabul, which means worthless or good for nothing in his language. The insult is diplomatic but unmistakable. Solomon has paid his astronomical debt with garbage. But Hiram is a pragmatic king. He accepts the cities, maintains the alliance, and returns to Tyre. The friendship between kingdoms survives, but the reputation of Solomon's wisdom is tarnished. The king who could negotiate with God has proven less skillful at negotiating with men. Inside Israel, the situation deteriorates. Solomon has built more than just a temple. He's constructed a palace complex, fortifications, store cities, chariot cities, an entire infrastructure of imperial power. Every project requires more forced labor, more taxation, more burden on a population already strained to breaking. The young officer Jeroboam watches all of this. He sees the increasing weight of Solomon's rule pressing down on the common people. He hears the complaints in the streets, the whispered rebellions in the marketplaces. He understands what the king isolated in his golden palace, cannot see. The empire is unsustainable. One day, as Jeroboam supervises a work crew, he encounters a prophet named Ahijah. The old man tears his new garment into 12 pieces and hands 10 of them to Jeroboam. The symbolism is clear, shocking, treasonous. 10 tribes will be torn away from Solomon's son. Only 2 will remain loyal to the house of David. The kingdom that David built and Solomon enriched will be divided because of the heavy yoke Solomon has placed on his people. Jeroboam must flee to Egypt to escape Solomon's wrath, but the prophecy has been spoken. The future is written in torn cloth and broken promises. Solomon lives out his final years in a kingdom that appears magnificent on the surface, but is hollow beneath. The temple stands as the wonder of the ancient world. Visitors from every nation come to see its gold-covered walls, its bronze pillars, its artistic mastery. They see the glory. They don't see the suffering that built it. When Solomon dies, his son Rehoboam inherits the throne and immediately faces the consequences of his father's policies. The people send a delegation asking for relief. "Your father made our yoke heavy," they plead. "Lighten the hard service and the heavy yoke he put on us, and we will serve you." Rehoboam consults the old men who served his father. Their advice is wise. "If you will be a servant to this people today and serve them, they will be your servants forever. Show mercy, lighten the burden, heal the wounds." But Rehoboam rejects this counsel. Instead, he listens to the young men who grew up with him in privilege and luxury. Their advice is catastrophic. "My father made your yoke heavy, but I will add to your yoke. My father disciplined you with whips, but I will discipline you with scorpions." The response is immediate and devastating. 10 tribes rebel. They call Jeroboam back from Egypt and make him king over the northern kingdom of Israel. Only the tribes of Judah and Benjamin remain loyal to Rehoboam. The united kingdom that David forged and Solomon enriched is shattered. And there's a final, brutal punctuation to this story. The people of the northern kingdom find Adoniram, the minister of forced labor, who embodied Solomon's oppressive policies. They stone him to death. The man who drove thousands to exhaustion dies beneath a hail of rocks thrown by those he oppressed. It's not justice, it's revenge. But to those who suffered under his administration, it feels like liberation. The temple Solomon built will stand for nearly 400 years. It will witness the rise and fall of kings, the preaching of prophets, the prayers of millions. But it will also stand as a monument to a fundamental truth. Magnificence without mercy is not glory. It's tyranny dressed in gold. In the end, the most expensive building in human history teaches us the most expensive lesson. You cannot build the kingdom of heaven on the backs of the oppressed. You cannot create lasting peace through forced labor. You cannot establish divine order through human injustice. The stonecutters who worked in darkness, who whispered prayers and curses in the quarries beneath Jerusalem, who cut blocks with impossible precision for a building they would never see completed, these invisible men were right. Their labor built the temple, but their suffering ensured it would stand in a fractured kingdom. The $590 billion question isn't how Solomon built the temple. It's whether anything built on such foundations can truly be called holy. The gold still gleamed, the cedar still smelled sweet, the bronze pillars still stood tall, but the kingdom was broken. And perhaps that's the real revelation. Solomon's temple was the most expensive construction project in human history, not because of what it cost to build, but because of what it cost to sustain. It consumed the wealth of nations, the labor of hundreds of thousands, the unity of a kingdom, and ultimately, the legacy of the wisest king who ever lived. The temple that was meant to bring God to earth ended up revealing a very human truth. Glory without compassion is just gold covering rot. Magnificence without mercy is just oppression dressed in cedar and bronze, and the most expensive building in the world cannot buy what matters most: justice, dignity, and the freedom of the human spirit. 3,000 years later, the temple is gone, destroyed by Babylon in 586 BCE, exactly as the stonecutters prayed it would be. But the lesson remains, written in gold and blood, in silence and screams, in the contrast between the brilliance of the surface and the darkness of the foundation. This is the price of glory. This is the cost that cannot be calculated. This is the truth that $590 billion cannot buy. The most expensive building in human history was built in absolute silence, but its fall would echo through eternity.